And welcome back to another episode of Pokemon Knowledge. On today's episode, we're going to be tackling definitely one of the harder questions in the entire Pokemon collecting hobby, and that's whether or not you should just continue to sit on your cards and hope that they appreciate in value, or should you be selling some of your cards and potentially be taking some profits. Now, pretty much every product in the last 1 to 2 years has gone up in value. The list of products that have increased in value is substantially higher than any of the products that have decreased in value. I think a lot of that has to do with the whole pandemic and the lack of supply for especially modern Pokemon cards. With vintage stuff, you have a lot of different people in different sectors, whether it's YouTube or personal collectors opening up a lot of vintage product. So we're watching as the vintage sealed product is shrinking a lot. We're seeing demand for product across the board, whether it's vintage, semi-vintage or modern. There's a demand everywhere. So we're going to try to answer the question, like I said, is it okay to take profits, and should you take profits? And sadly, there's probably not really a perfect right or wrong answer for this question, and it's going to depend on so many different factors. Are you personally a collector or an investor, or are you a combination of both? Because if you're a collector, there's no reason that you ever need to sell your cards, because those cards will always be worth whatever value you assign to them. And you're not in this at all for money, and that's fine. Or you're strictly on the investment side. So then that means you're sitting on these cards, you're hoping to get the highest return possible for those cards. Then you have the third group, which is the group I feel I fall in. I collect what I like, and I invest in all types of different products, but I will sell a large part of my collection to help offset the cost for what I do like to collect. Now, this type of investing has been a double-edged sword for me. I've been very lucky that I've been able to make money and use that money to buy stuff that I collect. But I've also found that a lot of times I've sold a lot of things in the past, which at the time I thought was a great deal for me as a seller. But as time ticks, you look back on some of your older sales and you realize that with the way the market is going, they don't really age well, meaning the price that a lot of my stuff sold at, you know, I could have got way more if I held on to it. But then I also have to sit back a little bit and look at my entire collection. And it's very hard to just pinpoint, oh, well, what part of my collection would I not have by selling certain products? So it's a tough. Guys, I don't really know if there's a right or wrong answer. You're really going to have to make it on an individual, person to person basis. But I can tell you one thing that I know for a fact. No one has ever gone broke taking profits. And yeah, that's not really a good answer, but I don't know, where the limit or where the ceiling is for this hobby. And, before you go down in the comments and start getting mad at me, listen, I don't think this is a bubble. I think that the hobby itself has transformed or morphed into something way different than it ever was, even, 5, 6 months ago. And I think the hype that is coming to Pokemon will continue to grow. And especially in 2021, it's growing. It has not slowed down. And if you say it did slow down, I challenge you to go find sealed products on the shelves of stores. And unless you're extremely lucky, that's probably not going to happen. So that's why I see the growth still happening. But at the same time, I've also been in this hobby where I remember a lot of products that were not valuable, were not sought after. A lot of sets, a lot of booster boxes, a lot of, I remember going into stores and rifling through different collection boxes and being frustrated at the amount of supply that was there. And, really, what's the word I want to put? Really scrutinizing over the boxes and the cards that were in it and the packs that were in it, and more or less feeling like Pokemon was trying to just shovel out all their excess crap to us and being upset about those boxes. Where we stand right now, and time of recording this video is February 2021. I would kill to be able to go back into those stores, and the collection boxes and the packs that were in it that I quote unquote at the time thought were crap, and I overlooked all those. Man, if I could just go back and buy every one of those boxes, so many sets from, especially like the X and Y's and stuff, pretty much all of the later Sun and Moon sets, everything has just exploded in price. And somebody had said the other day, and I didn't really believe them at the time. Everyone likes to make the joke about like Steam Siege. See that? I just had a little mini stroke right there. I don't even say the name out loud. But, it was always the joke set because there just wasn't a lot of good cards in the set. People were like, go look at what booster boxes are selling for. Something that just totally floated under my radar. Just looking at how much sealed booster boxes of this set were selling for, there was a time you couldn't sell those packs for $2. Now those booster boxes are fetching like a crazy premium. And I don't know why that's happening. Maybe that's just people out there trying to play catch up and, complete their sealed booster box collection. Honestly, I don't know. No, I'm not telling you to go out and buy a Steam Siege booster box right now. If that's what you get out of this video, you're listening to the wrong channel. But what I am trying to do is at least hammer down the point that everything is exploding right now. And like I said, I just can't really pinpoint a lot of areas of the market where things are dropping. But with that said, there are a couple, tips that I could give you. And the Pokemon market is so large. It's almost impossible unless you have just unlimited funds to be able to collect every set and every card and every product that has ever come out for TCG. Just trying to learn the cards takes forever, let alone trying to collect all the cards and managing to, actually do it is another thing. And depending on what side of the fence you're on, are you somebody that just likes to buy singles, or are you somebody that likes to buy sealed products and rip it yourself? Now, I've always been the latter, right? I've always enjoyed buying the product myself, opening the packs, and pulling a lot of the chase cards myself. And a lot of that reason was that was the only way that I was able to mentally learn the sets and understand the cards that were in it. And that's just by literally holding them in your hand and going through them. Now, that has started to become very expensive because, like you guys know, sealed product is increasing. But what you can do is with all products, I don't care which product it is, there are gaps in the market that aren't filled yet. And it's just across the board. On all sets, there are those cards that are sitting there, might be undervalued, or they might not be undervalued. There might just be such a low pop of graded cards for a lot of cards that if you do send away a lot of cards for grading, which I do, and I've encouraged on so many of my other videos, just as recently as last month, I said, the best investment you can do for January 2021 is send your cards away. Another video I made previously from that was just go and grade cards. I don't care what card you grade, even if it's just one single card. Send a card away for grading just so you get used to the process. And I don't care the grading company you choose. I don't care if it's PSA or Beckett or CGC. I recommend CGC right now just because of bulk cost, turnaround times, and remember guys, you have till February 16th to get your cards to CGC before the price increase happens. And if you are sending out bulk submissions at 50 cards, which is the minimum for bulk, you're going to save yourself $50 right off the bat. So definitely something to think about. Now, if you like subgrades for your cards, the subgrade fees going from $5 to $7, which is a $2 price increase. So for those 50 cards, if you were going to also do subgrades by sending them and getting there before February 16th, those 50 cards with subgrades, you're going to save yourself $150 total. Listen, $150 is a lot of money. You don't just, that's a whole Vivid Voltage booster box right there, think about it that way. And do it right now. But like I said, there are holes in the market, especially with the graded card market. And then when you have cards like that, you got to ask yourself another question. Do you want to price your cards to sell? Or do you want to price your cards in a way that they sit on the market for a little while? Now, obviously, there's the good and bad with that. The good, obviously, being when your cards are priced to sell, you're going to have a high turnover of cards. Money coming in, money going out. Grading times are taking a long time. Now, then you have the opposite. When your cards are priced to sit for a while, eventually the market just catches up to wherever your prices are. If your prices aren't just like astronomical and don't make sense. But then you almost do what has happened to me a few times in the past is I'll set a card. I call it set it and forget it, where you just put it at a pretty unrealistic, maybe buy it now price, and you don't even have offers turned on. And, you just go about living your life, and then one day, boom, you get an email notification saying that card sells. And then you start to look at the rest of the market, and you're like, maybe that card wasn't priced super high anymore. And, if you have a lot of cards sitting at auction, that will eventually happen. And then that leaves us to the final part of this video. Is just what's the best case scenario for taking profits? And what's the worst case scenario? The best case is that you sell your cards at the height of the market, or if Pokemon is in quote unquote a bubble, you have priced your cards and you get the highest realized dollar amount you will ever expect to see. I said earlier in this video, I don't think we've reached that top of the mountain, especially for this bubble. And where that bubble could be, I don't think is, straight across the board. I think it's different for vintage. It's different for modern. It's different for, semi-vintage. And it's definitely different for, your real rare, trophy cards and, one of a kind, like your illustrated Pikachus, or the super top of the mountain, like first edition Charizard's, first edition base set. Those cards are always kind of going to be in a different category because the collectors are at a different price level. Now, the worst case scenario for selling cards is that you sell your cards, you take your profits, and eventually you find out that you ended up selling your cards at, a bargain or way below whatever the current market price is, when you go back and you look at your cards. The only way you're able to offset that is if that's what you're afraid of. So if you're afraid of selling it and having that price increase, the only way you can offset is to take whatever profit or whatever initial investment or however you want to decide to use that money and just buy more product. Guys, I'm sorry. If you're looking for a channel where I'm going to be crazy negative and tell you should get out of the hobby and don't buy any more Pokemon cards, this is definitely not that channel. I'm going to tell you to take your money and invest in what you love. Invest in what you're collecting. Invest in something you think the market hasn't made its way to yet. The way you're going to make the most money is, like I said, if you are first to market, or if you identify or discover or bring to attention cards that are slept on by a lot of the community. And I'm a strong believer that there are a lot of people out there who are very well versed in all the cards that are out there. But there's a lot of newer collectors who are either doing one or two things. They're slowly working their way through the different cards of the hobby, or they're lightning speeding, almost warp speeding their way through the hobby. And both of those groups eventually will start to discover, the rare or slept on cards. And it's almost like a marathon race. You always have, that one runner, that one sprinter who just sprints to the front of the pack and he's leading. But eventually, no matter how far in the distance he was at first, eventually he gets tired. And that huge mass of runners, and they call it just the mob or the crowd, right? Eventually, they just start, gaining and gaining and gaining and gaining until eventually that sprinter who just ran at the very beginning of the marathon, he's so tired in that group he could just see him and they're right behind him until eventually they overtake him and he just gets lost in the shuffle, or he doesn't even end up finishing the race. So that's the future of the hobby, is that mob, is that crowd of people who are just running at a good pace, and eventually they're going to overcome everyone, guys. So if you do have the ability to identify, like I said, undervalued cards first, you're going to really do well in this hobby. And you know what? You're going to be one of the better collectors, one of the better investors out there. Now, guys, as always, if you've made it this far in the video, you are the best. You're the reason why I make these videos. And if you haven't had a chance, please please subscribe. Put down in a comment, what do you guys think about taking profits out of the hobby? Do you think it's a good thing? Do you think it's a bad thing? But other than that, I'll catch you guys on the next video.